is Sunday, October the 28th, 2018, Wrestleview Live number 46. Welcome to the program. We are here to talk about, if you didn't know, this was a historic evening, if you didn't know by all the video packages and all the mentions. I'm sorry, by the way, if I'm leaning awkward into this mic. I was just explaining to Doug that at any moment this little boom might just fall and embarrass me as we're doing this podcast, so that's going to be a fun little game that I'm going to be playing this evening. But speaking of Doug Lackey rejoining me on the pod. It's been a long time, Douglas, since we've last spoken. I can't remember the last podcast that we did, but it's been a while. We took a little unplanned hiatus, just with weird schedules and weird shows and stuff. And Doug will be joining me, but first we wanted to bring someone in because, well, first of all, it would have been weird to have two dudes with dicks talking about an all-women's pay-per-view right away off the bat. Just seems a little strange. So we have a wonderful guest with us on the line. You know her from the post-Raw show here on our YouTube channel here on Wrestleview. She does that show with Wrestleview's Raw recapper Mike Tedesco and her husband. We have Victoria Tedesco live. Well, are you still at the arena, or are you guys on the road now?
We're on the road now.
Okay.
We attended a carnival right after. They had like a little thing going on.
There was a carnival outside the arena?
Yeah. Yes. We looked out and there was like this spinning ride, and then there were games, and I won Mike won me a angel bear. It was really cute.
Awesome. I had no idea.
If they had whack-a-mole there, you better pull the fuck over for whack-a-mole. Okay.
That's awesome.
No whack-a-mole. I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry, Doug.
So I have to put your boy Mikey on blast here. I sent him a message about a half hour into the pay-per-view, and I'm like, hey, usually you post pictures when you get in the arena, and just want to see if you're there. And he goes, yeah, we're just pulling up. I'm like, you just missed the first match. And he literally goes, what? Question mark, question. I'm like, yeah. These shows start at 7 Eastern now. So what was, and I know you guys had a busy schedule, but you guys were doing a bunch of stuff this weekend, but did that just kind of, did that just slip the mind tonight that this show started at 7 Eastern?
It was just kind of one of those things where we were like, we genuinely thought 7 o'clock pre-show, and then 8 o'clock is when and we totally forgot about the different start times. And then when we walk in and we're like, oh yeah, you missed the Trish Lee. I'm like, what? So what are you talking about? And we thought it was kind of weird that nobody was outside the arena either.
Yeah.
We're like, oh wow, we're gonna go right in and easy peasy. But then no, and then they're like, sorry, you have to go this way. I'm like, oh, okay. That's cool.
That's all right. Well, yeah, I mean, you did miss a tag match, but it's okay.
Yeah, I heard we didn't miss much, so I was like, if that was a match to miss, okay, it'll be that one.
So, usually when we come on here, we try to focus on the positive, because there's just so many miserable wrestling shows that do the same thing we're doing, but they immediately focus on what made them mad and upset. And most of us, I would assume, and I would assume you're in the same boat as Mike, would like to go to these shows and enjoy yourselves and be entertained. But this, obviously, a little bit of a different vibe with this being an all-women's show. I know this isn't the first ever women's wrestling show. I know that there's been a lot of all-women's promotions, and, back in the day, TNA did all-women's pay-per-view, so it's not necessarily groundbreaking for the industry, but it is for the WWE, right, and for how much they've been doing over the last year with women's wrestling. I know the first thing that I'd love to get your reaction to it being there live. It didn't have the normal high-grade production pay-per-view setup. It looked like a house show, essentially, with a couple of screens. Did that take you back when you guys walked in and saw that?
Yeah, we noticed it right away. We were like, okay, here is obviously the barricades here. We were just like, wow, it gave a different feel. But it was nice, though, because it had more of this intimate setting, like you were part of something really special. So I didn't mind it so much. I thought that maybe, okay, they should have put a little bit more effort into it, but at the same time, being there, it gave it a really, really cool vibe, actually, an old school, vintage vibe to the whole thing. So even though it was something new and, revolutionary, so to speak, it was something awesome at the same time.
And I know the vibe. So this was even before the unfortunate Roman Reigns announcement last Monday. I saw a lot of angry tweeting among the wrestling Twitter world of people talking about how this show seems so thrown together and this should be a bigger deal. And they seem to be putting more focus on Crown Jewel. And, you know, Mike tweeted earlier tonight that as soon as they put the Crown Jewel graphic up on the screen, the crowd booed and they pulled it off real fast.
Yeah,
So there's kind of a weird vibe. So, you know, did you see any of that stuff? Like, I don't know if you sit there, and unfortunately my Twitter timeline is just filled with miserable wrestling fans most of the time. But did you have that same vibe going into the show and having bought a ticket and deciding to actually go see it in person?
At first, when I was one of those people where I'm like, it's a consolation show. Like, you know, how could they do this? But I honestly think if they make the decision, they have to, because the crowd was just into everything. Even if, like, you're so cold, like, bathroom break or whatever, you really couldn't say that there was any match or any feel. Like, nobody was, like, leaving certain spots or whatever. But when you were there, if they make the decision, they have to make the decision, in my opinion, to do this every single year around this time, because it gives something fun for the fall. And, like, now that they know how successful it can be, because in my mind, just by being there, it was successful. I don't know, like, watching on TV if it was different at all, but being there wasn't, like, really any lull moments at all. Like, people weren't, like, complaining and whatever. Like, I think as much as maybe there's, like, negativity against the whole thing of that it was just put together last minute, it didn't feel like it, just by all the hype around everything and these women doing all that they did to entertain everybody. Like, I felt, like, amazed by how much the crowd seemed to be together and into this.
Does Crown Jewel taking place this Friday take away from anything? Because I know that there was the weird vibe, and you and Mike have talked about this extensively on the Post Raw podcast, but does that weigh on you a little bit, knowing that, you know, we had such a historic show like this tonight, and then on Friday, you know, Mike's going to be covering a show from Saudi Arabia with no women on the card.
Yeah. No. You know, I try to go into it with, you know, I had that mentality going into it. I'm like, you know, this is like, how could they do these to these women, you know, especially with Friday coming up. But when I got there, I totally forgot about Crown Jewel. I really did. Like, until they brought it up and then people were booing it, I completely forgot about it. And I think maybe if the started off something is like, okay, it's a consolation prize, but I really think that they're going to reflect and say to themselves, we have to do this every year. I think it's going to be something that is just going to be continuous.
And it seems like, you know, once we had the women's Royal Rumble, we had Charlotte and Sasha Banks main eventing pay-per-views, and we had, you know, I think this past year's WrestleMania was the most women's matches on the card of any WrestleMania.
Yep.
It just seemed like, I wonder at what point that is going to become the norm, and then show, like, maybe they do more than one of these shows a year. Maybe this becomes 2 a year or 4 a year, and then they can kind of replace the other shows, and then kind of, you know, mix things up and make you more excited for shows like this versus like the usual TLC show every December or something.
Absolutely. They really, really should. I mean, at first too, I was like, if you really want women's equality, you shouldn't have a whole separate pay-per-view just to dedicate to them. They should just kind of fall into them together just automatically. But doing this, I think, it just shows the value and what these women can do. And the fact that, you know, now they really need to continue building up these superstars. They have to continue this momentum with the women in NXT. And it just, you know what was nice about tonight? It showcased the different aspects of WWE. You have NXT, you have the Mae Young Classic. You have all these different things besides Raw and SmackDown that people should really start watching. You know? So it's like, you know, something that most people were like, wow, like, you know, the Shayna match with, oh my God, what's her face? Who's tonight? She's really good. She's Pirate. What's her name?
Kairi Sane.
Kairi Sane, yeah. So, yeah, like, I know people, even though a lot of people didn't know who they were. I mean, there were a lot of NXT fans. Mm-hmm. But they were genuinely surprised by how well they did. If you were just kind of there and you were, like, there for the SmackDown roster and the Raw roster, you got to see different other parts of WWE, and just bringing, like, the importance to this Mae Young Classic, the NXT Women's Champion. So I thought that was awesome too. I really do. So I think it would be amazing if they did this more than once a year.
Shiftygism in the chat room said that they definitely have enough women on the extended roster now that they could easily do 2 pay-per-views a year at this point. I mean, if you think about all the women on the Raw and SmackDown rosters and then all the women in NXT, and now they're branching out with the NXT UK brand, and they're bringing and there's a lot of cross promotion there from NXT people, but they're also using women that have been in the Mae Young Classic now that are part of the NXT UK. So I mean, the sky's the limit, I think, for that. And that was, and I know Doug and I were kind of sounded like idiots, but we fully admitted to it that we just didn't see it as a possibility when there was the talk of a women's Royal Rumble this year, and we were like, well, we're looking at the rosters, and we didn't think at the time that there would be so, and the amount of women's talent they've added since then has just skyrocketed. And I get, but you have to kind of pay tribute to the older talent like they did. So like tonight they had the older talent. You have to pay tribute to the people that kind of set the foundation. But, it's rare that, someone like yourself and Mike, who are married in real life, both actually want to watch wrestling together. Usually it's one or the other, but what did a show like this kind of mean to you? Because I know you're used to sitting there talking about dudes 90% of the time or 80% of the time on post Raw. So what did it mean to you to be at a show like this and kind of see things progress the way they have over the last year in this company?
Yeah, it was amazing because I felt like, I'm like, wow, I was more invested for sure because I felt like I can relate to these women. If that sounds weird, I know, like, I don't know any of them, like, but I don't go through the things that a lot of, females obviously had to go through in the past and everything else, but there are certain times in my life that being a girl and being a woman, it's hard. People look at you a certain way and they think you're supposed to act a certain way, you're supposed to be a certain way, but these women really influenced me in a sense, and tonight, just to say, like, screw you all, we've always known we can do it, and here's the proof. Like, here's the proof to all those haters out there who are like, sorry, this can never happen, that women can main event, women can do this and have hardcore matches. Like, Becky Lynch and Charlotte proved everything tonight that they can do a last man standing match.
Yes, absolutely.
And hold their own and look just as tough as any male superstar.
Absolutely.
So,
I was kind of surprised.
Nice to see a lot of women in the night too.
Well,
the bathroom line was out, like, literally, it was like lines and lines past different sections of the bathroom line. I was like, oh, there's a lot of girls here.
That's good.
With their boyfriends or their husbands or whatever, we're just as easily interested. Even playing field.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things I wanted to ask because, we only see what we can see from what they want to show us on the network. So if you had to guess, like, what was the percentage women versus men there tonight?
I would say 65% women and the other portion is men. I really would say that. There was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And little girls. Too.
They did.
Really nice to see. Like, all these little girls, like, different. Not even just like, I thought there would be a lot of, like, just Nikki Bella and, like, the Bella, because it's very, but no, there was a wide variety of, like, Bailey, Carmella, Ronda, like, so many people. And just, like, we had a little girl sitting behind us. She was so excited. And there was, like, 6-year-old girls. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so cute.
Well, that was one thing I was interested because they showed a lot of little girls on camera tonight. I was like, kind of hoping.
Oh, they did.
Okay, yeah. Well, there was a ton, and now that you said that, I'm like, oh, that does make a lot of sense because I think they were intentionally trying to find little girls in the audience and trying to focus on them and make them, the focal point. When it was a lot of post-match stuff or even during matches or entrances and stuff like that. But I was interesting to hear that there was that many women there because, as stupid as this sounds, this is new to the WWE audience. It's not new to the wrestling industry, but it is very new to this kind of mainstream audience. And I thought they did a pretty good job tonight. Was there anything that stuck out the most to you while you were there live that you have the strongest takeaway with in terms of like a match or a moment?
I would say that the biggest thing was, well, I think just in terms of, this is my favorite match, the Becky Lynch and Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, no, nothing like out of the ordinary where I was like, oh, okay, like this is different from any other type of event. But I just think just the fact that they, the stamina that they had in the match, and like the fact that they were just with the, bringing up the tables, ladders, and the chairs, just like they really took risks, and they really, really were able to showcase that they're tough. Like, it wasn't like, the one thing that Mike and I were kind of saying, though, like, almost every other girl, like, cried after her match. And, like, I know Charlotte was, like, tearing up a little bit, but that was the first one where they were just kind of like, no, this is tough. Like, we're not going to cry. This is for, like, this is for their egos and for, like, just them to fight. They're not going to cry over anything. Because we were mad that Charlotte was crying the other night. It's stupid, We have to show these women, they don't need to cry. Like, and not every girl is emotional or whatever. Like, this is a match, and you're fighting. So I think that was, like, probably the biggest thing that was good for them.
Well, it was the vibe itself, and I'm glad we get a chance to talk to you tonight, because I'm sure you'll talk about it more tomorrow night with Mike when you guys do Post Raw, which is live here on Wrestleview every Monday night on our YouTube channel, on the front page of Wrestleview. You can get the audio version on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, everywhere. And you guys have been doing that for a while now. How's that been going with Mike? Doing a podcast? And we'll talk about it a little bit, because I know it's been a couple weeks. Well, it's more than a couple weeks.
I love it. I really do. Like, I have, like, my routine now. I go home. I have to nap a little bit, because otherwise I will fall on the floor, because I'm so tired for work. I'm kind of narcoleptic, but I'm not. Like, I think I'm, like, undiagnosed narcoleptic, because I'll fall asleep anywhere at any time if I'm, like, super, super tired. There's some points where I'm like, okay, I have, like, another hour and a half, like, that I gotta, get it together. But once I start, then that's it. I'm like, I'm good. I'm fine. Then it goes by so fast. I don't even think about it. Like, when I'm like, oh, crap, it's like 12:45. I should be in bed right now, going to work. And I go to work the next day, and I'm good. I'm fine. But it's nice to do that and to chat with everybody. And, like, I have a lot of friend requests now, and people who, like, reach out to me and, like, I don't even want to hear my opinion. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
I hope it's not getting too creepy. I hope it's not getting too creepy, because I told Mike, I'm like, dude, there's going to be a couple creepy things. I'm sure there's been some DMs that have been tried to slide in there on you, but so sorry about that.
Creepers, especially on the Twitters. I'm like, okay.
All right.
It'll be a few years until you become a meme factory like me. Okay, so
that's take some time. I'm like, okay, this is creepy, and all. But I was, it's funny. I was saying that even before the podcast. Like, randomly throughout the year, I'd be like, Mike, who is this? And he's like, that's somebody, like, who watches Wrestleview. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, hey there. I'm like, oh, hello.
Hey, man. I know, it's kind of weird when they don't know you very well. It's like, hey, man. So I guess overall, just to kind of close up some of your thoughts, because I don't want to. I assume you're going to want to go in more detail tomorrow night with Mike, so I didn't want to steal too much of you guys' thunder. But what did you? So overall thoughts, kind of the takeaway of not only seeing a show like this, but being there live and kind of being in that atmosphere for such a historic event tonight.
I loved it. I loved being part of it, and I honestly think if I didn't have, like, if it wasn't in our area, I probably still would have tried to find a way to go. Like, this would have been something, I don't take off from work very often, but I think if it was, like, in Florida or anything like that, I probably would have been like, hey, hon, can we fly out to this? Because at first I wasn't into it at all, but now just the development of everything. Maybe not the best execution of a build, with contour, but like being there, I'm so happy I got to go, because I've been kind of sick. I've been actually sick for like the past month now. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow before Raw. But it was well worth it. Well worth being here and just experience. It went by so fast for me. I was like, oh my gosh, we're already at the main event. Why?
It did
and
go.
Normally, by the end of the night, I'm like, I want to get home. I'm like, Mike, get home.
It did go well. They did have a good flow tonight. They just kind of, I mean, they obviously took little breaks with video packages and stuff, but they, the flow was really good tonight. I did think they did that incredibly well. So
they did.
Absolutely. Well, Victoria, I will let you enjoy the rest of your ride home, and we will definitely see what else you thought about the show tomorrow night on Post Raw with Mikey.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
We should do it more often too, not just for women's only pay-per-views.
I do.
Yeah, you and Mike are hitting up all these pay-per-views on the East Coast, so we should have you guys on to talk more. So it'd be great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Victoria. We appreciate it.
Okay. Wait, quick question before I leave.
Yeah.
So who do you enjoy talking to more, me or Mike?
You can't do that to me. That's just rude.
No, you can go ahead and give that to me. No, I appreciate you more than Mike.
Thank you, Doug.
See, I'm gonna stay neutral because Mike does such a good job for me on Wrestleview, but I enjoy talking to both of you. How about that? There's my answer. So I'm gonna be a coward and not answer.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks, Victoria. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
you too.
Have a good night.
That is Victoria Tedesco live from the East Coast and giving us some feedback there from, what was it? It was Long Island tonight, right, Douglas?
Yeah, over in Long Island.
Yes, over in the Long Island. So make sure you shot. Oh, yeah, there you go. There's Douglas. Hi.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, Doug was there. I'm lazy. I need to make my shots a little bit cleaner when we have calls, but so obviously there's a reason I wanted to start with Victoria because we're two dudes, and I texted you. I'm like, we're gonna get crucified if we don't have a female voice for a show like this because it's not uncommon for dudes to sit around and review women's only wrestling shows like Shimmer and what are the other ones? There's a lot of women's promotions. And then I don't know, were you really dialed in much during the early 2006, 2007 TNA days when they were doing full-blown women's pay-per-views and it was like Awesome Kong and Gail Kim and ODB and the Beautiful People? Like, were you? I
really was not dialed into TNA's women's stuff until I want to say the advent of the Beautiful People.
Okay, so that was like
2000... I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, the domination of Awesome Kong and the advent of the Beautiful People.
Okay.
So that's the best way to put it.
Okay, and because that is being brought up,
sure.
And I think it's a fair point. I'm just saying, that company is not as mainstream as the WWE is, and neither is Shimmer, and I get that. Ring of Honor has a thriving women's division now, and Impact,
which is shocking.
Yes, they have a really good women's division actually, and so does Impact. Impact has some really Tessa Blanchard. We saw her wrestle at All In. She's the champion right now. There's a lot of good female talent. That's headed to Impact. Jordan Grace is headed there. We saw her wrestle in the Battle Royal.
I am thoroughly entertained by Stardom in Japan.
Yes, Stardom.
That is some fun stuff right there.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of this. It's just, I mean, we've seen the progression in this company with teasing. Okay, let's do a women's Royal Rumble. Let's do a Hell in a Cell match where 2 women main event. Let's have main events with women. So eventually it's just going to get there. It's going to progress to get there. Anything that stuck out to you that maybe was your favorite moment of the night, or something that if someone had asked you, if you had to pick one thing from the show tonight, if somebody didn't see it, what should they go out of their way to watch?
Oh boy. That is such a tough question to answer. Just because we know this pay-per-view, this event was predicated upon the first ever women's pay-per-view. And so history. Like you mentioned, the first Hell in a Cell, the first women's Royal Rumble, the first. And so we go into this show knowing it's first women's pay-per-view. This is a show that I could show anybody, and when I mean by anybody, that I'll go ahead and try to be incredibly specific by this. If I want to show kids a pay-per-view, this is what I'm showing them. Okay. This was an incredibly all-encompassing pay-per-view. This was the kind of event that you could bring people who have never watched pro wrestling and bring them in. And the first thing you got to tell them is that this is all women. And in the back of their mind, like, why are you showing me this? There's no Hulk Hogan. There's no Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's no Rock. There's no, none of that. Yeah. This is all women. Okay. Just watch it. You don't need to tell them backgrounds of why matches are happening because the video packages are doing it all themselves. You don't have to do a damn thing. It's all right there for them to digest. I cannot believe I'm going to say this. I really think this was the best pay-per-view of the year.
Wow, that's a
seriously
powerful statement, Douglas. That's a hot take.
I went into this and I set the bar so low. Okay, we knew that the end time was announced that this pay-per-view was going to end at 10:30. In my mind, I'm like, oh, they're ending before 10. There's no way they're going to carry this to 10:30. And in my mind, I'm going, this is all going to be about comparisons. This is all going to be about first ever, history. The video package that they use, the packages they used to say history were all testimonials by the female performers.
Yep.
But that was really it. Every single match, they didn't make any comparisons to men. Hardly ever. The only time they ever made any mentions of men was The Rock's mother at ringside.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That was it. I was more concerned about this being a comparison side thing. History. Oh, like Whitney Houston said, I am woman. It's all me. No, none of that. Okay. This was a fantastically put together pay-per-view. No botches in any matches.
Well,
every match I'm telling you,
Sasha Banks, but yeah,
they made up for it and didn't make it look like one.
That is very true.
Table botch and Lynch Flair. Let's try it again.
That's true.
And they did it perfectly.
That's a wonderful point. I will give you that. That's a good point.
All right. I mean, we've seen botches way worse in men's matches, and they try it a third time. Okay. This was a fantastic pay-per-view. Okay. I'm saying, yeah, this was the best pay-per-view of the year.
It's a powerful state. I don't even know. Like, I liked it, but I don't know if I would call it the best pay-per-view of the year. But
I will. I mean, I'm going to have to probably watch all of the pay-per-views throughout the entirety of this year.
Yeah.
To see if I can back that up. But
I mean, it's not.
This is not my heterosexuality talking. Okay. I'm serious. This was a great show.
Well, there's going to be and I'm a critic of it too, but the social justice crowd, and there are times they deserve to be incredibly criticized, and then there's other times they don't. And I don't think you're an SJW if you thought this was a good show.
No means am I. No.
This was just there's been no time in the history of this company that they've had so much female talent under contract that it just makes sense to continue to progress this way. I want to share what I thought was without question the best part of the night, but I was scrolling over to our Twitter page to look at the poll like we usually do. And now granted, right now the poll 84% thumbs up, 16% thumbs down. Sandro with the comment here that said the WWE managed to pull off a great women's pay-per-view. I enjoyed it. As I was scrolling, it's pretty clear Mike just tweeted out a photo of some dude with a purple wig on, just staring away. He's wearing clearly Sasha Banks fan. I love that this is just a thing at the show tonight. That's great.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Just a dude showing up, showing support. I had to put a little spotlight on that because that was incredibly random. That Mike had it was no context to it. It was like, here's the photo, everybody, enjoy it. But yeah, I would say as far as if I had to pick the one thing, I was blown away by Toni Storm. And how do you pronounce her opponent's name? Because I don't want to botch
Io Shirai.
Io Shirai. Okay.
Io Shirai.
I'm going to be fully honest. I have never watched Io Shirai wrestle in my entire life. I've always heard of her. I've always heard people say good things about her in-ring work. Holy shit, was this girl impressive. Not only was she impressive, but I love the whole aura of Toni Storm. And I think, didn't you review one of her matches on Wrestleview Weekly?
Well, actually, I tried to.
You tried
I tried
to.
finding
Okay.
these two have faced each other before.
Okay.
They faced each other 2 years ago in, I believe it was the Stardom promotion.
Okay.
And I tried finding the full match on YouTube, and unfortunately, I can only find highlights packages. But they've faced each other before. I have yet to see, like Toni Storm. We saw her with the Mae Young Classic. I really, same thing with Io Shirai. All we know from her is from the Mae Young Classic itself from this year. The fluidity of that match, and bear in mind, this match lasted less than the six women tag that you would have seen on any throwaway Raw. That match told just a great story.
It was just
a great story.
The way she moved in the ring, and I'm going to try to get, sorry, I got this up here. I'm going to see if I can get the video up here. And I'll dump this. Watch this transition of, so just like the crossbody here. So that was one that was incredibly impressive. I'm looking for the moonsault that she did. I hope I retweeted it.
Oh, the moonsault. Yeah.
I don't think I retweeted it. I'm an idiot. But there was a couple good shots. I thought TDE Wrestling had the shot of the moonsault she did where she scaled up. I guess they didn't have it. Shit, I was almost positive that they had it.
That's okay.
We'll try to find it. I'll look for it as I'm sitting here talking. But she did this walk up moonsault thing, and it's one thing to see someone execute a moonsault really good, and that's already, that's an incredibly hard move to pull off in wrestling. It's scary. It's dangerous. Lita sometimes has issues with it and it could go wrong, but man, when just now granted I pulled the wrong, that was Kairi Sane. That's why I was pulling the wrong match. I need to find the Toni Storm, the Mae Young Classic match. So if you didn't see it, and Doug, you alluded to it when you were talking about it, just like back to back to back to back, the fluidity of how she executed stuff. Watch this. I'm going to put this up on the screen here, because this is just, you have to see this. Watch how she just hits, just watch this. So she, when she hits the moon, like bam, like just like how the snap, it reminds me how we liked Kairi Sane's elbow drop, but watch how she springboards. Watch this. Just like the snap, the height she got on that. Watch this again. If you didn't see it, look how high she got. And of course, a lot of that's Toni working with her too. But man,
you're talking about the sunset flip.
The sunset flip, the German suplex she takes on the ring apron right here, just boom, right on the back of her neck. Here's, I think this is the moonsault right here. This is the one I was like, what? I think it's the way, look, that's beautiful. I think it's the way in that most people go 1, 2, 3, they climb up the ropes. She just flips right up and then boom. I'm blown away by this girl. I want to see more of her. I think she's awesome.
You never see that in women's wrestling, period. Okay?
Just don't.
You don't see women because they stutter when they do any kind of moves like this. I think that's the other thing I want to preface with all of these women's matches. I can't believe I just said that. I want to mean all matches, because here I am not wanting to offend anybody. But
whoops.
Every match, there were no stutter steps.
And I think that's an
Every
obvious...
performer did not have Scooby-Doo feet.
Yes, Scooby-Doo feet is a very common... And it's not just relegated to women. There's a lot of guys that just suck at wrestling too, and they have Scooby-Doo feet.
Oh, God, yes.
But we've been watching... I've been watching women's wrestling since the early 90s. And... we got to be honest, the quality of the women's wrestling in the early 90s was not that great. There were some pretty good wrestlers, but it was never that was always, even in the Attitude Era. Do you remember how bad Sable was? Sable was a terrible wrestler. There was always those moments where you would see something and you would worry someone was going to get injured or hurt. The athleticism, and I think people like Medusa and Ivory and Molly Holly and Tori Wilson, I'm sure they're watching these girls and being like, holy shit, the amount of athleticism in women's wrestling has just, even over the last 10 years, has just skyrocketed. And that,
oh God, yes.
If I had to tell someone to watch one match from this show, it would be that Mae Young Classic match. I love Toni Storm. She kind of has this 80s vibe, this 80s kind of metal rocker vibe. And she just has a really good look, and she's I've been watching some of her promos from the Mae Young Classic. She's got real good presence when she talks. because that does take you a long way in wrestling. You got to know how to talk a little bit. But man, to me, that was, I would say Becky and Charlotte were a very, very close second, almost borderline the same for me. But there was something about that, and I'm glad, you hit it on the nail perfect. The fluidity of which she would execute these things was just so impressive. Blew me away.
Yeah.
Blew me away.
I've also got to tell you, before going into the show, I binged on the Mae Young Classic.
Nice. How'd that go?
Oh, wow, was that fun? That was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, yeah, we know Tegan Knox, tore up her knee really, really bad. That's the only thing I really knew. But this is some fun stuff. And but I guess what's also kind of weird, and this is really new for me too, is I'm bred on pro wrestling being about characters. It's about character developments. It's about gimmicks. It's about all this stuff. The Mae Young Classic was an honor fest.
It was.
It was a respect fest. I hate honor fests. I hate handshakes. I hate that shit. But what's weird was every single match, I could tell the difference between the two that were in the ring. Okay. There were, my God, I need more Mako Satomura in my life. I love her. They kept, the way that they touted her was debuting on WCW Nitro at the age of 16. And that's all you need to know. They just show the pictures of her from then when she was 16 years old, and you look at her now, 22 years later, and they tout her as this Japanese legend. The commentators of Beth Phoenix, everyone saying she's a legend. By God, I'm just in awe of her. And she shows it in the ring. I've only seen one match of hers before watching the Classic, and that was her retirement match of Asuka in Japan before Asuka came to the U.S. to be in NXT. And it was sort of, I was baptized in this, you could say, in this Mako Satomura character. And so I've kind of latched on to it now. It's kind of really cool to see this. I kind of feel like I'm in a weird area right now with pro wrestling, and where how I used to watch it is in having a really big battle with the one that's watching it now.
Interesting.
If you're kind of following me here a little bit, like I've been watching professional wrestling all my life, and I'm talking 32, 33 years. And all I knew of women's wrestling was Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young. And then after that, it became Alundra Blaze, where, wait, there's a women's title, but I haven't seen it ever on TV. Why are they doing this? And then after that, it turns into pillow fights and lingerie battle royales. And then it turns from there into, okay, so Lita's a thing?
Yeah.
So Trish is a thing? Okay, I guess they are. And here we are now. I mean, it's a tremendous step for someone like me who's been watching it for a long period of their life.
Yeah.
But for someone who's watching it right now,
that was my next point. Yeah.
This is fantastic.
Well, imagine, like, we grew up with watching Jerry Lawler's ex-wife get her top ripped off.
Right. We were watching the cat.
The cat, and like the
you got Deborah,
the mud wrestling, Deborah, the puppies, and the mud wrestling, and it was presented in a way that they thought and at the time that worked for that audience in that time period. But
in a way that guys like us that were growing up with the WWE and they wanted to keep our dollars. Oh, those guys that were watching when Hulk Hogan was around, they can go to strip joints now.
Yeah, they want to see boobs. And now it's you're right. Imagine growing up and this is going to become the norm for someone that's like 12, 13, 14. And it's not even gonna, and I think Charlotte may have said that on one of the video packs. Somebody said on one of the video packages tonight, how this is going to become the norm now. It's not just going to be little girls. It's going to be little boys going, hey, this is what it's supposed to be. This makes sense. This is normal.
And that's why I'm saying this is the greatest pay-per-view of the year. Okay.
It very
This is
well
why.
could go down as one of the best of the year because of this because of this natural progression that we're seeing.
Because of the impact and also how great all the matches were.
Yeah, they were really good. I mean, I know some people had issues with the opener a little bit because they thought Trish and Lita were a little rusty, but I thought they made up for it. I thought it might have started out a little rusty, but it didn't end that way.
Can you blame them?
Not really. They're not actively
Can
wrestling.
you blame them?
And what was great was commentary is like, that there's ring rust and you're seeing it. And I like that they just kind of addressed it and then just kind of, moved on from there. I have to ask you, because we've kind of talked about stuff that we've liked. Do you still think it was the right call to have Ronda Rousey, Nikki Bella close the show tonight?
That was the biggest call. I really thought that Lynch and Flair were going to end the show because that was the storyline that they had built for the past month and a half, almost 2 months now. I really thought that was what they were going to end the show with. But for them to end with Rousey Bella, no, that was the right decision. Because throughout the entire purpose of this show was the evolution of women's wrestling. And so you had the personification of what Divas was in Bella going against the new form of women's wrestling that is Rousey. So it made perfect sense to have them be the main event. Me being the armchair, booking pro wrestling fan that I am, I would have had it be Flair Lynch, but it makes perfect sense for it to be Rousey Bella. So I have no qualms with that decision at all. Perfectly understand it. And let's also be honest, if you're wanting to end the shot with all of the women on the ramp, I think they're going to hug Rousey well before they hug Lynch or Flair, regardless of who won that match.
And that was I was kind of bitching on Twitter.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Oh, you bitch on Twitter?
Yeah.
What?
I was basically, and I had this hot take for the last couple of weeks. I had the hot take even before they booked the match between Nikki and Ronda.
Oh, you did.
Where I was just kind of like, first of all, I didn't want to see them wrestle. I had no interest whatsoever. I didn't think
of Bella Rousey.
Yeah, and I was surprised.
Why? What was wrong?
Because I thought Ronda still needs a little bit of help in the ring, and I thought Nikki Bella. If you had to make a list, Nikki's the last person on the list for me. Just not even somebody I would think of right away. However, I was pleasantly surprised at how good it was. I was the issue, and you raised that point, is that you can't close the show with Becky fuck you Lynch, which by the way I love the stuff she's doing. I mean, did you see the promo with Edge a couple weeks ago on SmackDown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Just awesome. She's just off the charts great right now. But you're right. You can't have Becky backing up, being like, "Yeah, that's right, bitch," and then you have to hug the roster. And,
then everyone hug her.
Yeah, you can't really do that. It's just not. It's not going to happen. So I get it, but if I had to obviously pick between the two matches, that one interested me way more than Ronda and Nikki. And Nikki and Ronda have only really been feuding for a couple weeks on television, and this Becky and Charlotte thing's been going since even before
SummerSlam.
Yes, August. SummerSlam. So it's been going for a while. You did hear the obvious, which I'm sorry, you just can't. I know this is East Coast, so people might say, "Oh, it's on the East Coast." You just can't escape the amount of positive reinforcement the Becky character is getting, and they really, really want Charlotte to be the good guy here, but it's just not meant to be. And I think they're realizing that. I think they're going with it. But man, I think Mike got a video that he put on the feed of the reactions to when Becky walked out versus Charlotte, and they were loud in favor of Becky. Actually, let me dial this up here while we're talking about it.
Sure. Go ahead.
This is Mike. Actually, wait, let me get this. There it is. Okay. I don't want to blow everybody's eardrums out when I play this, but let me just do it to about that so I don't kill everybody. So listen to. It's a loud Becky reaction. It's pretty loud. I mean, that's a pretty loud reaction. I mean, so it's obvious they're in favor of old Becky right now. I don't know why that was so choppy before. But
I have a 2-letter response for you. So,
but the problem was how they initially started it. They wanted you to hate Becky, but you can't. You got to just go with it now. Like they really, really tried to make you go, Doug, she's a bad girl. She shouldn't be doing this. But the reaction, and this is something she talked about with Jim Ross on his podcast. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it, but he said initially that was their plan with Steve Austin, was that we'll go have him beat up Bret Hart because everybody loves Bret Hart. But then for some reason, him beating the shit out of Bret Hart, people were going, actually, yeah, we do want to see you beat the shit out of Bret Hart because, I mean, this is just, we're sick of this.
I got to tell you right now, that is the perfect comparison for Charlotte Flair.
Yes.
Is Bret Hart.
Yes, we're sick of it. We're just kind of like, all right.
Well, no, it's not just sick of it. I mean, let's just go ahead and face facts. Charlotte Flair, throughout her career, has been a heel. Yes. Who did she confirm being a babyface with? Nobody. She just appeared on SmackDown and was instantaneously a babyface. Yeah. No, it was never cemented. It was never made credible. It was never made reliable. Okay. Just as the same with Bret Hart. Who did Bret Hart turn on or anything to become a babyface? Nobody. Bret Hart became a babyface just because of word of mouth, just because he's from Canada, just because he works hard and he was in a dungeon that his father built. No, that's a perfect comparison right there.
Yeah.
So of course Becky Lynch is not going to be booed on. She was never turned on a viable face.
Yeah.
So honestly, all of these arguments that we're thinking of like Becky Lynch was supposed to be booed on, but the WWE isn't buying it. No, it was all they're doing. Okay.
You don't, but there's a part of me that thinks they thought that was going to get, obviously that they got that awesome reaction at SummerSlam, but part of me still really truly believes that the writing team thought that the crowd would boo her a little bit more than maybe they let on. But at the same time, this is the one thing I do love about wrestling is that the audience will just kind of be like, we're good. We're going to cheer still because
we're going to do whatever the hell we want.
Because you can't really I know I talked about this with Paul about kind of the Roman Reigns comparison with Charlotte. And I don't really think that applies with Charlotte too much, but you're right though. It's just kind of like they just did it and the crowd's just really, really behind Becky right now. And it's made for a very entertaining character on television and matches and promos. And I love every second of it. So that's my favorite feud right now.
And she can absolutely just keep on doing what she's doing. Go on the Twitter and hate people. Go on SmackDown and just, lay waste to the crowd and everything. They'll just keep cheering it. Just keep on rolling with it.
Don't stop it.
Keep on rolling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do feel like sometimes we unfortunately neglect the chat, and I'm not doing that on purpose. It's just sometimes I'm.
No, it was on purpose.
Producing, recording, talking. It's fun. It's a good time, Douglas, as you know, doing your Twitch show. Jesus, there's many times where I wish I could just hire somebody to produce, record, so I could just sit here and talk. But my mind's running a million miles here. So I do want to go back to the chat. Shifty Gizm commented on the production, said it looked amazing. The low light introductions were cool. Did you like the kind of house show? It was like the simple house show barricade look. Okay, you like that?
Yes. You cannot give this a mega production like a regular pay-per-view. You can't do that. No, not with something like this. You have to have it as low level as possible to make the reactions from the crowd and the matches that you're doing feel that much more important.
I also wonder too,
that more passionate of a feel.
They were doing, I think it was last weekend, they did a super show in Boston. And I read that they brought in a bigger production crew than usual because they're testing the waters of filming and streaming house shows live at certain markets that you can watch on the network. And I don't know if did you see the story? I think maybe I don't know if you talked about it on Wrestleview Weekly. I think you did. About the potential pricing tiers for the network, how there might be, if you pay a little bit more, you're going to get more content. And included in that would be watching live house shows in different markets. And they would have, live video and production.
Well, then when they did a big old survey when it came to pricing tiers. Like, would you pay this more for other, content for say other promotions? Like Progress, like Shimmer. And they were naming even those that they have no toes in their pools. Okay. They were naming everything out of the water. But the one thing that they did mention were house shows. and house shows got a major bump when it came to paying for that pricing tier. I got to tell you right now, you want me to pay an extra $5 a month? At first I was saying, if you're just going to give me, again, progress, or you're going to give me something from other federations, no, I don't really care for that. But if you're going to give me some house shows, oh, good Lord, yes.
Yeah.
But don't change the production of them.
No.
You better keep them on the low level. Okay.
I like the grittiness.
I would love to dip into a Sunday night show coming out of Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
Sure.
That'd be fun. And the grittiness of it too, where it doesn't have that polish of Raw and SmackDown. I think that'd be good. Take a Rules said, do you think this will become a yearly event? I think so. I think at this point,
no question.
After tonight, I don't know how it doesn't.
No question.
Other stuff in the chat. Let's see what else we got here. Hayden Barker said, I'm not sure how many times you can bring in the past stars. That's also a valid point. That was something we brought up about the Rumble. I mean, like, how many years?
Next year, none.
Okay. You just kind of.
Next year, none. No cameos.
But then do you think they'll get credit? Like, well, why are you ignoring all these other women that weren't invited to the Rumble and to this show? And I don't know. I feel like that could also,
Because they're old.
Well, that too, but I feel like that could get out of hand too, because people love to, it's Twitter. And
we just tapped into a brand new audience of young girls. Okay. The only way that they've ever known of Lita, Trish Stratus, or any of these, Alundra Blaze, Tori Wilson, any of them else, was from this show.
Yeah.
They know nothing else of their history.
That's true.
There's no point of bringing them back for another show.
That is very
true. We want to keep the audience that we just got tonight.
That is very true. That's a very good point.
Okay.
WrestleView's owner and webmaster Paul Nemmer chiming and giving the show a thumbs up for this evening. I'm wondering.
No, he said that I was smoking crack because
I
said that this was the best pay-per-view of the year.
He didn't agree with best pay-per-view of the year, but he did give the show a thumbs up.
Oh.
Ashley's My Name UK said the fact that they pulled the NXT UK title match and only have 7 matches on the card and it still felt like a perfect length show. That was an issue where I thought Rhea Ripley, who was sitting front row, and you talked about this in your predictions, at one point she was factored into the show, but at the time, I think they thought they would have already been caught up having aired all the NXT UK shows, but they got a ways to go to catch up.
They got a long ways to go.
They got a long ways because they really delayed that one. I know Triple H said at the time they were not planning to record those shows, but they just didn't want to wait, so they went ahead and recorded them anyway and kind of stocked them, and now they're starting to play out on the network on Wednesdays, if you haven't seen that yet. Andrew Elder said Michael Cole was all positive for the most part towards the women. I know some people were a little pissed that he was even on commentary, but it's like, do you really want Renee Young and Beth Phoenix out there by themselves? Like, you got to have an anchor.
No, you got to have the anchor.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, that's just silly.
I mean, if you have a problem with this, then you really had a problem with the Mae Young Classic and him calling that. You might have had a problem with Jim Ross calling it last year.
Come on. It's just completely silly.
Stop it.
Let's see. What else do we got here? Goosey wants Toni Storm versus Diana Purrazzo. Who Diana was in the Mae Young Classic this year. Last 2 years, actually. She was supposed to be at All In, but she had to pull out.
Yep.
Andrew Elder was not a fan of the Trish Stratus opener. I know some people were talking about that a little bit earlier.
No, that was the perfect match to open the show with.
It wasn't.
That was the perfect match to open, regardless if Alexa Bliss was healthy or not.
Yeah, it was.
That was the perfect match to open with.
Not too bad. So we'll go back to the chat and look at some other hot takes. But Shiftygism thinks Rhea Ripley is going to be huge, maybe the biggest non-third or second generation women's wrestler in the company. She does have a really. I loved her tonight where she was slow clapping. I don't know if you saw her. She was not.
Oh yeah.
She did not. The Mae Young Classic. She's like, yeah, cool, that's awesome, and she was slow clapping. So I did enjoy that. But
that's good milking into the NXT UK show.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's been relentless on Twitter since Tegan Knox busted up her knee. So she's been just trolling, and it's been very entertaining. So we talked about the main event. We talked about Becky and Charlotte. We both kind of picked a few things that stuck out the most to us. Anything else on the show tonight that really stuck out to you, or anything that you think deserves a little bit of little discussion time here on the podcast?
I was shocked by the crowd. Thoroughly shocked by this crowd.
In a good way or a bad way?
Well, in a very good way.
Okay.
I mean, well, when the pay-per-view was announced and Stephanie McMahon, comes out there, the first ever women's pay-per-view, then we look at the date and it's at Nassau. How many of us went, Ugh. Oh, good luck, ladies.
Yeah.
Okay. I was shocked. Okay. Because this right now, I was shocked. This crowd was a regular pro wrestling crowd. They weren't smarky. God, there were no CM Punk chants. There weren't any AJ chants.
That's very true.
Can you imagine that? You're in Northeast, a women's pay-per-view, and you would think of the CM Punk-like chant that you would get at this pay-per-view was for AJ Lee. None.
That's very true.
Nowhere to be heard.
Did you like
This-
the Iconics cutting the promo and saying, "Oh, we're having our first women's pay-per-view, but it's in Long Island," and then they started pointing out the funny voices that the people in Long Island have compared to their Ulster. I thought that was funny. That was
I
good.
completely identified with them since the first ever pay-per-view review that I had to cover for this website was Fatal 4-Way out of motherfucking Nassau.
Oh, that's right. That was
Okay.
the epic summer show where I was gone and
You were gone. It was
Yeah.
it was me running the ship.
oh, that
You know,
was
fed
brutal.
me to the wolves, and by God, yeah.
That was not intentional.
Okay, so
by
that
the-
was playing on my mind.
yeah, that was not
Okay,
intentional,
there-
by the way. It just turned out that way for Doug. So
No, it just turned out that way.
Yeah.
You know, that's how stuff happens, you know?
it does.
But but this was a great pro wrestling crowd. Okay, I couldn't tell if this was Nassau or Columbus, Ohio, or anywhere else. Okay, this was a crowd that really enjoyed the show. They never died. They were never dead. They stood up and clapped when to stand up and clap. They cheered for Becky Lynch. Well, go ahead and cheer for who you want, you know. But this was I was shocked by that crowd.
It was good.
That's the best thing that I can think of. I can't imagine if it were anywhere else. If it were in any other crowd, I don't know if it would have been this active. I don't know.
That is always the biggest concern about shows like this is like, you know, people get so amped, but can you keep that up for 3-4 hours plus kickoff? And, you know, it can be a chore, but it didn't
And I
feel
just
like a
looked
chore.
at the chats, and Brian said, and that's when Doug turned to the bottle.
Well, I agree. I don't know if I would call this the best show of the year, but it had an awesome vibe, and I love the grittiness of the production. That really weighed on me tonight. It was like it looked. I know that had to have been super intentional, just because it just looked different.
Yeah.
It felt different. You know, it's just like the video packages. I thought they did a good job of pulling the right sound bites and mixing in the right footage. And I loved what Alundra Blaze, or Medusa, whatever you want to call her, what she said. How she used to be on cards where it would say pro wrestling and more, and the and more implied women's wrestling, but women's wrestling would never be up on the marquee ever. And
Yeah.
she said eventually it felt like they were going somewhere when they introduced a women's title, but then that even really wasn't that big of a deal. Like I remember growing up and like, I know there was like Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano but it wasn't like, it was just like, oh, okay.
But you didn't see them on the TV shows.
No, you did
They
not.
just sprouted up.
No, it just wasn't a very big, and even in the Attitude Era, like I was talking about it, what a terrible wrestler Sable was. I mean, everyone would just want to see her tits. She was in Playboy. Look at my tits, Doug. I'm in Playboy. And it was, and every women's wrestler at one point was on the cover of Playboy. It was like Maria and then Sable, and there was a ton of other women that did Playboy.
Yeah, Deborah. Yeah, Deborah.
Deborah and a ton of them. And that's kind of what it was. It was like they got big tits, and they also are going to have a wrestling match, and they're going to have this women's title. But I don't know. It just, and then like obviously you saw a few women like Ivory and Molly Holly and women that could actually wrestle really good. And Trish, who started out 100% as valet eye candy, turned into a really good wrestler. Lita, who really, I think Lita doesn't get enough credit in terms of bringing more women maybe into wrestling during that Attitude Era because the Hardy Boy, and obviously it's in your neck of the woods. But
Yes.
just that whole, I don't think people realize how big the Hardys were in the Attitude Era. Like just from the merchandise to the entrance to, and
Just their look.
their look. I mean,
It was just their look.
it was
That's
the look,
all.
and it felt modern, and it felt very now. And then to have Lita in that was just huge. And she brought in, I know she brought in a lot of women, because I knew girls in high school that didn't really like wrestling, but they would always watch Lita wrestle, and they would have Lita, and it was very different vibe with Lita. But then as soon as Lita retired,
They ducked away.
They ducked away, and John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, decided to hire. He would look at books or modeling books and say, "Oh, she's attractive. We could teach her how to wrestle. Oh, she's cute. We could teach her how to wrestle." And then we went through a whole span of that. And yes, some of them did learn to wrestle, but it wasn't. It still was kind of an afterthought. I'm trying to think of like what year in terms of WWE land. Did it start to really feel like, oh, was NXT maybe where it was really starting, like Bayley, Sasha Banks?
It was the dawn of NXT.
Okay.
Was what it was. It was the transition from Florida Championship to NXT.
Yeah.
Was where it happened. Is what it I believe is what it was. You can't pinpoint it on a particular talent. You can't do that, and it's incredibly unfair to do so. But it's with that advent of from FCW to NXT, and from the NXT television show on USA to be turning it into their own federation or developmental is what they turned it into. That is where the breeding ground for this Evolution pay-per-view took place. This was just as how much we say that there is a whiteboard for WrestleMania, there is a whiteboard for corporate structure. This was in the books for a very long time. This was not spawned on by an AJ Lee tweet that Stephanie McMahon retweeted. This was long in the books and was way into the making. Okay? I'm sorry. This was way in. Okay? When NXT came out, then you brought in, first off, Charlotte Flair is one talent I want to pinpoint right now as Charlotte Flair, because she is right here from my neck of the woods of Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. Age 17, 18, she was the star volleyball player for Providence High School is what she was. She had no inkling of doing anything athletic. She was just going into college and being just a normal person. And here she is at age 24, I believe 24 or 25, joined the WWE and trained to be a wrestler. It took her 2 or 3 years. And it took her a long time to develop into this. Okay. Because of that developmental, that's why I say this was a long time in the making. Mm-hmm. They were developing many talents to come into this. Okay, Becky Lynch has been doing it for a long time. Bayley's been doing it for a long time. Sasha Banks has been doing it for a long time. All of these names that have been touted have been doing it a long time, but I really don't like focusing on one talent, but Charlotte Flair is the one to focus on because she initially did not want to do this, but trained into it and got into it and became better. Very, 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 very good.
Yeah.
And so it's from that transition of FCW to NXT and incorporating the veterans to come in and also bringing in the developmentals of the Charlotte Flair.
Yeah.
It happens.
And
okay.
The Chad did not want me to forget names like Beth Phoenix and Mickie James and Alicia Fox. And I absolutely, I think of Victoria. Ed just mentioned Melina. There was obviously there was some good female talent, but for the most part, they were going for the Eve Torres, Kelly, Maurice. These were models, and now we're gonna
Stacy Keibler.
Yeah, like it just wasn't a thing. It just they would sprinkle in some talented people like that actually did know how to wrestle, and then they would use that and try to mold other people. And for the most part, it was fairly successful, but it wasn't at the level of what this is now. And I think you're right. I think Charlotte. To me, it clicked the most with Sasha Banks and Bayley watching NXT TakeOver from Brooklyn.
Right.
And there's a really good network documentary on that show. I think that, to me, that show is incredibly significant because we did a whole, I think it was when the Trey and Adams show was going, we did a whole podcast talking about that match. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, when's the last time we did that? We have never done this before. We never did a podcast talking about a women's match. So to me, if there was the transition to NXT, which I agree started it, I really feel like Sasha Banks Bayley made people go, oh, wait a second, we might have something here. This might be something. This might turn into something. And I think that Why I say that is watching them wrestle in a sold out arena in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center.
And the production.
And it was just, it felt like a big deal. And I think that match deserves a tremendous amount of credit as well for really going, okay, I think we're ready to go down this new path and give this a shot. So obviously there's a lot of things we could sit here and look back on and talk about, but that one for me, that one sticks out because that's a match I would go back and watch. I mean, then that to me shows me how special it was. Really was. It was a very, very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So as this show comes to a close, we have quite the show coming up this Friday in Saudi Arabia.
Wow, talk about a segue.
Ooh,
Jesus
boy.
Christ.
Yeah, that's how do you go from a significant historic show like this to, hey, by the way, the girls can't wrestle on this show this Friday in Saudi Arabia. They're not allowed.
How do you go from we aren't really doing this for the money, but crap, do we love the money?
We sure love the monies. And there was the tickets have sold out. They went on sale this weekend. They've sold out now. They were supposed to go on sale October 19th, I think, and then they held off because of all the media backlash. I saw you talk about it on Wrestleview Weekly, the John Oliver segment on HBO, and just the subsequent, media articles after that, and it blew up into something big. I personally think they should have postponed the show. I think there would have been nothing wrong with postponing the show. I think from a PR standpoint, I know they entered an agreement, but when people are leaving deals bigger than this one on the table, it's not a good look. No matter I don't know how you can spin murder. You just can't spin murder, and you just can't. And it's the cloud that's going to be, and I want to put up the tweet that Mike put out for us tonight. If you remember, there was 2 plugs during the show tonight for Crown Jewel. And the last one, I think, was right before the main event. And it was right before the main event. And Mike tweeted at us and noted how they did. There was a super loud negative boo reaction to it, and they immediately pulled the graphic off the screen. And then I remember, when The Undertaker talked about it on SmackDown 1000, boos. I mean, it's just, you can't get around it. And there's enough out there at this point where people kind of know what's going on. And I know this is a publicly traded company. That was my argument going into the show before the murder. Like, I know there was already kind of criticism before the murder stuff happened, in that you had this show Evolution in such close proximity to a show in a country where women were just given the right to drive, but still no women on that card. And I heard some people say, well, they're going to make it up to the women by having a show like Evolution, even though there's a show like this happening. Then you announce Shawn Michaels, and it's like, wow, they're really going full bore for this thing. This guy hasn't wrestled since 2010. This is a big deal. And then the murder happened. And then I don't know, like at that point, to me, you don't have an argument, but you're more than welcome to make an argument. But to me, you just don't. I don't get it. I don't get it. But they're going to do it. They announced last Thursday that they're going to go through with it. So we are going to, and it's Paul and Mike, and you are more than welcome to join them. I am unavailable. I don't know if you are, Doug, but Paul and Mike will be doing a podcast on Friday talking about Crown Jewel on YouTube.
Ooh, it's at 6:30 on Friday?
It starts at noon Eastern.
It's at noon. No, I won't be.
That's what I thought.
No, I won't be. I'll be at work.
I'm unavailable, but that's going to be an awkward one. I've read there was the overwhelming narrative I read is that you are morally repugnant if you watch this show, which I don't know. Like, I agree they should have pulled out, but I don't know if you're morally repugnant if you watch the show. I think there's I don't know. That's a hard one for me to even go with, is that you're a bad.
Oh, I've got some wicked 100-mile-an-hour fastballs to throw at you if that's what you're going to be saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're morally repugnant if you watch Crown Jewel,
or you have no morals, essentially, if you watch.
You have
the
no
show.
morals.
Yeah.
Did you all enjoy the World Cup this summer? Did you all enjoy that?
What if you don't watch soccer?
Well, okay. Did you enjoy the Olympics? Shut up.
Exactly. I know.
Stop.
There's a lot
Just
of it.
shut up.
It is.
Okay, I don't want to. No. Stop it.
It
Okay.
is-
First off,
yeah.
you guys aren't even going to know the last name of the guy who was murdered next week.
Yeah.
Stop it. Okay. For one, have you heard any word of this, this crown jewel event in the national media for the past 2 days?
No.
No. You know why? Because there's a lot of other crap that's happening in this country right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, God, this is going to sound so horrible of me to say this, but man, the WWE is pretty glad that we are screwed up as a country right now.
Well, it took them out of the headlines. That's for sure.
It took them way out of the headlines. No one's talking about it or anything that's happening in another country right now.
I mean, they can't escape the criticism, but you're right. And I think Roy said this when we did the SmackDown 1000 review, is that, yes, people are upset today, but do you think they're going to be upset 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now? And
the number one thing right now, I've just got to say, when it comes to this crown jewel event and the WWE puts it on, the number one thing that I'm going to focus on right here is, are they even going to show the crowd?
I don't know. They didn't. I mean, they kind of showed the crowd.
They couldn't help but show the crowd.
They had all the
during
Saudi
the biggest Royal Rumble because the fuckers were standing up everywhere.
They were, and there was like tables set up for the Royals, and and this is actually going to be in a smaller stadium. This one only holds about 20,000, and they were.
It's a regular basketball arena.
Yeah, it's not very big. I mean, it looks big when you look at the photo, but it's not as many seats, so it's not as big as the last show. I don't think. I think that show had I think that show was like 50, 60,000, maybe something like that. But I mean,
if they can keep it off the crowd, and not show.
Well, they sure didn't say Saudi Arabia tonight. Yeah, they're not saying Saudi Arabia. If you note, listen to the plugs like tomorrow.
For all I know, they're going to be over in Indianapolis. For all I know.
And they do that like when SmackDown or Raw goes to like whenever Raw comes to Des Moines, Iowa, they never say we're in Iowa. They say, "Hey, Monday Night Raw is live, Doug, on the Monday night because it's the Raw and that's what we do on Monday nights. And here's a skyline of this place we happen to be." They'll never say.
They're going to have the corner tag at the top left corner of your screen saying Saudi Arabia.
No, they're not going to say Saudi Arabia. They'll say, I mean,
somewhere.
They'll say
we're live somewhere.
The crown jewel thing is this place, and they'll.
We're live in a building.
Yeah. It's going to be fun and this is that corporate dance that unfortunately happens in the WWE and happens in every corporate entity. It's just the little dance you do, but so that's going to be a thing on Friday. So Mike and Paul will be on here on YouTube reviewing it, and of course we'll have live results courtesy of Mike Tedesco as that show takes place. But I guess we're going to be the morally repugnant, because I guess that was the next question, was if.
Are we morally repugnant for covering it?
Well, that was my next thing. It's like, do we not cover the show then? Like how would, imagine if I told you Shawn Michaels is going to have his first match back since 2010 and we're just not going to cover it. Like, how do you not cover that? Like, that's a big deal.
You're going to cover that.
There's 2 things to watch this week, Doug, which maybe you'll have an update for on Twitch by Wednesday. Yes. Apparently John Cena has informed management that he's not going to work the show.
Someone got a bye in the World Cup tournament. Good for them.
So apparently he doesn't want to work the show. Also, there were murmurs that Daniel Bryan is refusing to work the show, but they did plug him tonight as the challenger for AJ Styles in the WWE Championship. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's 2 things.
Oh, AJ retains by forfeit. Good for him.
AJ's going to retain. But that's the 2 things to watch this week and kind of and see where it goes. But it's a green light. It's a go. It's happening on Friday. So we'll see how it goes.
Let it happen.
It's going to happen. It is what it is. The next time that you and I will be here, though, I guess I should ask you this other question. The next kind of big weekend for us is Survivor Series weekend. That is the weekend of the 17th and the 18th. There's a takeover show the night before, and it's the second War Games. So we did a post NXT takeover show WrestleMania weekend. Response was a little So I guess I'll ask now as we do this live chat, would you be interested if we came on here and talked about War Games?
I got no problem covering it.
I mean, we're going to be covering the show anyway in WrestleView. I guess I'd like to gauge the interest because it wasn't I was expecting more interest level the weekend of WrestleMania, and it wasn't. I don't know if it's just because it's Saturday. Maybe it's Saturday night, and maybe it's just
Saturday night.
Probably Saturday night, but maybe the carryover from the next day would be fine. But so we'll definitely be here after Survivor Series. But I was interested if people that are in the chat right now, or people that are watching this on archive, definitely comment below on YouTube or tweet at us or whatever. But we're thinking about it. We're toying with the idea. But that's the next big weekend, and really we're getting ready to close out the year. We have Survivor Series weekend, the 17th and 18th, and then December, I don't remember the date, is TLC. It's is it the 16th or 20? It's got to be the 16th, right?
I think so.
Because
it should be.
There's no way.
It's definitely not going to be the weekend before Christmas.
Yeah, let me look it up. WWE pay-per-view schedule 2018.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it right before Christmas. That's for sure.
There's no way they would do that. It is the 16th, yes. So TLC, that'll be the last show of the year. So yeah, and then we're going to be closing up, and then before we know it, it's going to be Royal Rumble time, which is crazy because it feels like
I love the Royal Rumbles time. Don't you love Royal Rumbles time?
That's my favorite pay-per-view every year. I love the Royal Rumble.
Everyone who says I'm not watching WWE ever again, they're taking the Saudis' money. We'll see in January.
Exactly. I know that is my favorite thing. Is if you really do not support this, then you can't watch. You're done with WWE. Then you have to be done with them. If you're gonna
just go ahead and say you're done. No, we'll see you in January.
I saw one dude on Twitter, and I'll out him. It's the @ProWrestling guy. He's a pretty good follow on Twitter, but he said I'm no longer supporting WWE, watching WWE, and I said good luck doing that on Twitter because it's just unavoidable. You're going to see GIFs and videos and pictures, and good luck with that unless you ban and block everybody that talks about the WWE. But it's a monumental and powerful hot take stance to go with, but we'll see if people can follow through with it. That is
Ed, bring it up. Ed brought it up in the chat right here. Do you realize we got 4 pay-per-views coming up until the end of the year?
Why? There's Takeover, Survivor Series.
We had right now.
Crown Jewel. Yeah, I guess.
We had right now Crown Jewel, Survivor Series, TLC,
and Takeover.
If you want to count the Takeover, sure, that's 4 right there.
Yeah, that's 4.
Okay. In 9 weeks.
Yeah, that's a lot. Is that too much? It's a little bit much. A little bit much. But Crown Jewel being on a Friday, I don't know. It just seems a little, I don't know. It's the same vibe I had with the Australia show a couple weeks ago. It's just
same here.
Yeah, it was on
it's an exhibition.
Yeah, it's exhibition. And,
it's an exhibition. It's not something to really carry over from TV unless you've been paying attention to the old farts in the ring.
Shawn Michaels is wrestling and Bork Laser's back, so I would say it's a little bit.
It is kind of important.
Yeah, it's a little important. So, all right. So that is our thoughts on the first ever women's pay-per-view. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I want to thank Victoria for calling in from Nassau Coliseum or outside of it. Douglas, you are live on the Twitches every Wednesday, but should we let the cat out of the bag, or do you want to let this simmer for a couple more weeks?
Oh no, I'll let the cat out of the bag, even though I may have to have it declawed because we may have to groom it a little bit after it's leapt out of the bag. So Wrestleview Weekly has been airing every Wednesday on the Twitch. I'm going to say I've been doing this now for a good amount of time now, about 6 months almost.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, it's been going very well. Having great following with everyone in the chat. CJ, Andrew, Ashley, the Big Stoop, everybody joining me in the chat. And just last week, we kind of did a test run of doing some previews and clips on YouTube. And so kind of looking at transitioning and I guess moving out of the Twitch apartment into a better condo and taking Wrestleview Weekly from Twitch onto YouTube.
But if you want to review a match, we kind of have to have that be on Twitch because you would get slammed with copyrights on
That's
YouTube.
Correct, because YouTube doesn't like it when I watch New Japan Pro Wrestling.
No. Actually, did you hear that New Japan is going after GIF creators now? Like they're going to copyright and destroy it?
Wow, are they trying hard?
It's like that is your bread and butter.
How are they trying hard?
It's your bread and butter. And I mean, those shows air at like 3 or 4 in the morning, so GIFs are the only way you see stuff. And then you're gonna, I don't know, seems silly, but anyway, sorry, didn't want to.
I really hope that they think they are that strong of a brand and that they don't need to rely on others to promote themselves to become big here in the States and make a lot more money.
CJ just said in the chat that they're changing their stance now. I did not see that, so I would love to talk more about that and see where that's coming from. Because last I saw, they were holding firm on that. Because I saw some.
But what I'm looking at is just moving the show from Twitch on over to YouTube. And when it comes to the match of the week, match of the night, if you all want to join me on Twitch, we'll go ahead and watch it.
Go on the Twitches, exactly. So
Yeah.
that way we can.
And it be in any match.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Copyright free too, so that'll be nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously we've been building up the channel with more clips and stuff, and you saw a little teaser that we did on Friday where we did like a premiere of a segment from Doug's show. But I just love your news response format on Wrestleview Weekly, and I just think that YouTube's a great place for that. So we're gonna do that.
The WWE milk carton is the one segment WWE pays attention to.
Yes, I love the milk carton. That's my favorite. It's good stuff.
They found No Way Jose.
A lot of people not liking Twitch in the chat room, Douglas, apparently. So I was not aware of that.
That's because they don't play video games.
Well, that's true. Yeah, if you play video games, it's a wonderful place to be. But yeah, if you're not into the games, then not so much.
Yeah, they have lives. What can you say?
All right, we're going to get the hell out of here. We will be back the weekend of Survivor Series, so we'll keep you posted if we're going to be doing a takeover post show, but definitely a post show after Survivor Series. Tune in, actually, I should say tune in tomorrow night, post Raw with Mike and Victoria Tedesco. They'll be breaking down that show and talking about attending Evolution Live. And then
listen for Victoria. Don't care about
Mike. Who cares about Mike? Right?
Fuck Mike.
Speaking of Mike, on Friday, he will be joined by Paul Nemmer on YouTube to review Crown Jewel, which will be fun, and we'll see how the reaction is to that show. That show starts at noon Eastern. I don't know how long it's going, so they'll be live within, I don't know, I would say if it's a 3-4 hour show, I guess conservatively 4 or 5 o'clock, we'll see. I don't know. They'll be live though.
Just in time for a happy hour, kid.
Just in time to have a beer and enjoy yourself for the weekend. Exactly. So if you need a beer, an alcoholic beverage, go for it.
You're going to need it.
And then in a couple weeks, we'll be back for Survivor Series weekend, myself and Douglas. So there you go, everybody. So yeah, until then, just stay tuned here. We'll be bringing more of Doug's content onto YouTube, and then we'll kind of give you an idea tentatively when you'll do your first live show on YouTube here on the YouTube channel.
It'll probably come up sooner than you think. I've just got to make alterations to the overlay.
There you go.
Stuff.
Yeah.
That's all it really is.
We'll be doing some upgrades. So that'll be nice. That'll be good.
Yeah.
This is actually my last show in this kind of room/office. I'm going to be moving to a new room. I'm going to be experimenting with like blue screen, green screen backgrounds and goofy. I have a wonderful idea and plan for our Christmas show where I will be
what?
In a room with a fireplace going and snow outside. I have a wonderful idea that it'll be me in the most ridiculous green screen scenario you could possibly envision. And I'm already messing with, I did a little test with a green screen and oh boy, this is going to be,
I'm going to be ordering my green screen.
Okay.
And I know that I think my setting would be, I'm actually sitting on Santa's lap.
Yes. So if you have a shot, if I can get a shot of you on Skype with a green screen, I can literally drop you into anywhere on my, it's going to be,
God, yes.
This is going to be beautiful. So we have to figure out all the logistics obviously, but we'll make it. I already want to start planning now because I don't want to wait till the last minute. I want to put as much effort, and I got to get with James too, and we'll figure out what we're doing this year. But, cause that is, believe it or not, if you look at, if you look at the calendar, how many weeks away is Christmas? We are one.
No, shut up. I don't
2,
want to know.
3,
No, don't
4,
say it.
5,
Don't say it.
6, 7, 8, almost 8.5 weeks away from Christmas. That is scary. Oh boy. So
no.
yeah, it's going to creep up on us. And we usually do that show about a week prior, or I think a week before Christmas is usually when we do it. So Ashley is like 53 days. He had it to the marker there.
Oh, fuck you, Ashley. You're banned from chat forever.
No, I will not be putting myself in Cowboy Stadium. Andrew, he was asking if that's what I was, but yes, Torque Man, I will be having a production gasm because it's just ridiculous the stuff you can do with green screen. So anyway, everybody, we're going to get the hell out of here. I should remind everybody, if you use Spotify, iTunes, or other RSS feed apps, you can get the audio version of the show. Just look at Wrestleview Media, especially on the Spotifys. I am a daily Spotify user, Douglas, so it is awesome that people can now get our content on that platform now as well. So
I like the Spotify. Spotify is neat.
I love me the Spotify, so we are on there as well. So look us up. And of course, the one thing we're trying to do is bump them subscriber numbers. So if you do watch this show or watch any of the content, just hit that subscribe button. And we would love feedback, likes, dislikes. Tell us why we're awesome. Tell us why we suck in the comments, whatever. And we have some plans to expand that content in the coming months as well. I just have to kind of let life in general calm down because explained this to Doug many times.
Life gets so much better when you're in a basement, Adam.
Well, that too, but you kind of got a little inkling and taste of what life is like for me now, and that.
Oh, yes, I did.
So I won't go into too much detail because I think it's creepy when people know too much about your family and stuff. But Doug, Mike, and Goosey all got a glimpse of me walking into a pizza place in Chicago holding a baby carrier. And I remember Doug yelling, he goes, "Oh man, I wish I could just take a photo of this and frame it like this is Adam's new life, is carrying the baby. I had the diaper bag and it was just,
yes,
it's a new life. It's a new dad life." So
yes.
It's been interesting, but I've enjoyed every second of it. It's been very rewarding. It was a little brutal for the first 3 months, but it's getting to that point now where it's like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. This is fun. This is rewarding. So when I see like when I saw Maria's little baby front row tonight and I saw Maurice's, it's like I have a connection to that now that I never thought I would have ever in my life. So
yeah, I could not identify with that.
I know you were probably sitting there like, just take a.
I'm just trying to squint my eyes and go, you know, that baby might look like a fifth of Jaeger, but I'm not sure.
But I'm not positive. I'm not sure yet. But yeah,
I still can't. No,
that shot of Maria's little baby watch. I was like, oh boy, that definitely.
Well, I got you right in the feels, didn't it?
Oh, it hit me in the feels, man. It punched me right in the feels. It was, I got that one. So, yeah, it's a different life, but it's fun. I've been enjoying it.
Maybe you can now identify with how WWE is trying to sell now.
Maybe. I have a daughter now, so I would like her to live in an environment like this. You know, I'm thinking.
Here, honey, I'm going to show you this. Do you see that person? That is Io Shirai.
You should do moonsaults like her. I am looking at things in life and thinking about things I never thought of before much differently now that I have a daughter. It's just that's what happens.
Honey, this is a kendo stick.
Yeah, it's going to be
tighten up.
I'm already getting the don't put on wrestling in the living room. That's not allowed right now, but we'll see. But I'm going to try. We'll see how it goes.
Once they hit 3, you can do it, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's probably acceptable age. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, we're going to get the hell out of here. Thank you for tuning in live. Thank you for listening. If you're on archive as well, we do appreciate that. Definitely like, subscribe on the YouTubes, and you can search Wrestleview Media on all podcast platforms to listen to the audio version. He is Doug Lackey. You can follow him on Twitter at Doug Wrestleview. I am Adam Martin. You can follow me on the Twitters via at Adam Wrestleview. Of course, follow at Wrestleview on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course, we have our awesome Wrestleview Media Facebook group, which is, I would say, every single day there's something going on. Like my notifications are always just pumping.
Oh yeah. Well, we have Sandro, our intrepid reporter.
He is like our reporter. He is
our intrepid reporter.
Yeah.
He reports on there. We are meme-tastic.
A lot of memes. Quite a bit of memes. A lot of videos.
Lots of memes. Yeah. Great threads during Raw and what we call the official quote, "Nobody watches SmackDown" page.
I love that every week. The "Nobody watches SmackDown" thread. Yeah, it happens. Okay, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you. Doug and I will see you for Survivor Series weekend, but you'll see Mike and Victoria here tomorrow night, and then Paul and Mike on Friday for Crown Jewels. So until then, bye.